Good morning, good afternoon and good evening, wherever you are in the world today. My name's Paul Webb, I'm the founder of B2B Energy, and you are listening to Energy Speaks Back. Energy Speaks Back interviews energy experts from around the world. Good morning, good afternoon and good evening, and welcome to episode 23 of Energy Speaks Back. Weekly, I present to you experts from around the world. Today, we are in Poland, and we are discussing architecture and design, but from a sustainability standing. Our purpose, as always, is to provide a good understanding of energy management knowledge from around the world, which is available today for us to deliver savings that impact on our planet. My guest today is the founder and the CEO of Arc Studio, and has an amazing passion for building sustainable houses and buildings. He specialises in passive buildings, which you're going to learn more about today during our interview. We're both members of BNI Global Power Team, and we meet on a bi-weekly basis. So without any further ado, I give you Radek Kowsan. Good afternoon, Radek. How are you today?
I'm fine, Paul. Thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm very well. And tell me, what part of the world are you today?
Well, I'm sitting here in Warsaw, Poland, during a beautiful sunny day.
I'm in the UK, obviously, and it was beautiful earlier, but typical UK weather, it changes so quickly. And we're currently sitting at 12 degrees. So you got good temperatures where you are today?
They are nice, actually. It's 9 degrees here.
9 degrees. So, right, I've met you through BNI. We're both members of the Global Power Team, and we've had some one-to-ones and some good conversation, and you've told me about your background. So for the benefit of today's listeners, can you give us tell us about your background and your career?
I'll be glad to, Paul. So I am an architect and an urban planner, and this has been my profession for last 15 years. And I run my own architectural practice for 9 years now. So this has been my focus at the professional level, designing buildings. And in that, I put special attention to sustainable design and the ecological solutions that a house or a building or a site can apply.
So you focus on both the commercial and the residential side?
Yes, these are two types of buildings that we design. Like right. 60% of residential and the rest is commercial. And we made several industrial projects as well.
And tell me, what sort of things are you implementing into, say, for instance, in the residential world?
Well, it's a complicated question, but I'll try to be as simple in my answer as possible. Because when you mention sustainable design in general, these are not only renewable energy sources like a heat pump or PV systems. Sustainability is an idea that has much more impact, meaning to use local materials and local contractors whenever you can. Meaning that both parties, in terms of the client and the contractor, are on the same level from day one, and their interest is common. So there are key aspects that sustainable design, a true sustainable design, ought to have, but it's still thought of as a green building.
Yeah. And obviously, one thing that drives that is cost. And the cost of that property, because you're going to probably long-term increase the value of that property for someone to come along and buy that because of the amount of sustainability that's gone into that project.
Absolutely. There are obviously different different cost levels you can put an investment or a development into, but the general idea is that you need to have a balance between the initial investment and the return of investment, and that thing we calculate and make simulations in terms of the financial part to our clients to make sure to be a filter, I always say, between the marketing and the marketing and the design and what really works and what doesn't.
And do you go into the final fix? So obviously we're talking about the building, the infrastructure, regarding the walls, and then when I refer to the final fix, I'm talking about the lighting maybe and solar on the roofs. Do you follow that structure all the way through that process?
Yes, we try to integrate the whole building and all its elements, and to even if we don't design the PV system right away, we still want to make sure there's a cable and a PV ready construction, to not to do a fit over or a costly redesign. So there are some small and minor things that need to be taken into consideration to make a construction or a development green ready, so to say.
Yes, I like that, because I haven't seen a lot of this in the industry regarding developing and the architecture around this. It's quite a new thing to me to start to hear that, because in my experience, it all starts off well regarding these properties are going to be sustainable, but when it comes close to the actual development of that building, a lot of the sustainability gets engineered back out because of cost. How do we stop that from happening?
That is actually a question that I don't have an answer to, not because I'm avoiding the question, but because I know and I fully agree with you, Paul, that within the development, it is always about the cost and the budget.
Yeah.
So what Polish real estate developers are trying to do is to prepare as much as possible for the PV systems, not for the heat pumps, because it's an individual heat source, but prepare as much as possible. And this is a marketing term. They are doing upselling. So it's like a brand new car. You get option A, option B, option C, and these are all different price points.
Yeah, that's a good way to introduce it. And what I'm finding in my world of energy management, so I've been in the industry for 40 years, and I've seen various different technologies arrive into the industry, and every time it arrives, so for instance, I'll tell you the technologies. So I'm talking BMS, I'm talking LED lighting, and I'm talking solar. So those three milestones in my career that I've actually seen. So when the BMS arrived, only pharmaceutical organizations, power stations, the larger establishments would have this technology on board because it made savings and it was the right thing to do. However, the cost of that technology was very high, and possibly the quality of that technology was quite low. So imagine many years ago, only pharmaceuticals had a BMS system. Today, every household has got some form of smart system controlling it. And basically, that is a building management system. So costs have dropped drastically and qualities come up. We now move on to LEDs. LEDs had the same pattern, high cost, low quality, only the larger buildings, commercial buildings, we've had that, and then that's come closer. We're now starting to see that with solar. Solar's becoming more affordable, the costs are coming down, reliability is increasing. Obviously, there's not the benefits of the feed-in tariffs, but we are seeing benefits. So I think those trends will change. So, for instance, you probably nowadays you probably find that LED is more the norm to install. That wouldn't get engineered out, but maybe solar and batteries might be engineered out.
Yeah, absolutely. LEDs are pretty straightforward. They are pure savings, and you would be a fool to avoid them.
Yeah.
Even as a developer. But on the other hand, there's still this sweet spot of the shift and the focus. Where is the heat source? Meaning not only in the buildings themselves, but in general. Look at Germany just 2 weeks ago when the wind turbines has been frozen, and like 30,000 of them put completely out of operation, or largely out of operation, and similar to the solar panels, millions of them blanketed in snow, and these are stuff that we have to take into consideration, because think if 100% of energy were coming from renewables, there would be a complete blackout everywhere.
Yes, exactly. There always has to be a balance, doesn't there? We need to balance the intake of power. It does need to be, the power generation does need to be balanced across of all various different, not putting all our eggs in one basket, as they would say in the UK. So yeah. What percentage, is there a given percentage of sustainability that has to be applied to building stock nowadays?
Well, it is not regulated by neither the building code or the local site regulations. It's up to the energy simulations and the level of energy certifications that a building must meet. Whether it's a low energy consumption building, whether it's passive house, or perhaps a zero or a plus energy house. And we applied different solutions regarding what we have to achieve in that terms. This will be more and more regulated in time. In Poland, the electromobility regulations are put forward. They are a little behind, but still in 1 or 2 years, it will be finished. And just to give you an example, every newly constructed residential building will have to operate a charging station for the EVs.
Right.
So these are kind of regulations that are universally good, because we are a bit behind as a country in terms of electromobility, and the infrastructure is key.
Yeah, I haven't heard that in the UK about every house having these points applied to them. That's interesting.
Well, I meant the multi-family housing, these sort of residential, not a single-family home.
Yeah.
But it's still the regulation, the code wouldn't differentiate whether it's a 4-flat apartment or 100 flats. It has to have a charging station, and that's all.
Right. You mentioned a word earlier, and I'd like you to sort of go back on that. You mentioned passive control on the properties. Can you tell us a bit more about that for our listeners today?
I'd love to, because that is my area of specialty, and I could talk for hours about this. So please put me on hold if it's too much.
No, go on, please.
So
love to hear it.
The great idea about passive house, and the name itself derives from the fact that it does not need to have any active heat source. The heat coming from the inhabitants themselves is enough to operate the building. So it has such good insulation and ventilation systems, together with recuperation, that in theory, of course, the heat coming from inhabitants is enough, and the reality is quite. It's not that far from the theory, but there are still people that likes and needs to open a window, for instance. So in a winter day, it obviously crashes the whole system.
Yeah.
And passive housing is something that is obviously maintenance friendly in terms of costs. There are minimal costs to operate such a building, and the thing is, when you think about a passive house for yourself, you either do it accepting the high investment cost, the higher investment, and then you operate for a substantially lower monthly cost, or an annual, for that matter, or there are some instances where people do that just for the sake of living in a healthy environment, because these are really taken into consideration in terms of what materials are used, what's the ventilation system, and to avoid the SBS, the sick building syndrome, which is very common among residential buildings. We try to incorporate healthy materials whenever we can, even in the buildings not being passive, but it's still the industry.
A friend of mine, well, he's become a friend of mine through business. He's built a passive heated property, and he invited me there for a meeting, and I was shocked. We sat in probably 21, 22 degrees, very comfortable, not too hot, and it was quite surprising that when we were sitting there, you didn't feel any chills, and there was no heating, and it was obviously we were generating our own heat. Amazing.
Yeah, it's in terms of the precise heat values. You and me, and like an adult human being, is 60 to 100 watts of energy. So it's like a pretty decent light bulb back in the day when the LEDs weren't introduced.
So we do give off a lot of heat.
Yeah, absolutely. And imagine whenever you have a group of people, like in a classroom or at a conference in a public building, most ventilation systems aren't calculated good enough and do not take into consideration this heat producing.
And have you built any of these properties recently, or is it just design?
Thankfully, it's not only in theory, on paper, or on our displays. We have some of these designs completed, and the recently accomplished one, it was built and started to operate 2 years ago. It's a single-family residence with a net area of a little over 300 square meters. And it's functioning really well. It It's funny because there is a solar-powered heat pump, but the building itself is partly in a forest. So we had to make precise simulations in terms of the ecliptic of the sun and the heat producing possibilities of the solar panels, but it's still the people living in there are only saying good things about living there.
That's excellent. And is there a backup if it does get too cold? Do you have it additional heating if they needed it, or is it just got no? Because the properties I've been looking at, they've got no backup at all.
Yeah, there is a backup actually. It's electric, so there is one upgrade to our design, and now we try to incorporate batteries, the lithium-ion batteries, to work together with solar. But this is actually not a perfect solution. It's somewhere in the middle of efficiency. But lithium-ion batteries in the residential industry is not efficient, and I think the way to go is the compressed hydrogen storage systems. Right. I think the only residential building that has been proven to be fully autonomous was built in Sweden recently. And they indeed use the compressed hydrogen tank to store the energy from the solar, and it's working out well for them.
All right. One thing that's in my head at the moment, because I do a lot of retrofitting, so I retrofit properties, not residential, but I put a BMS system into a commercial building, or we put solar on the roof. Can you retrofit a passive system into an existing house?
It is possible. We have made some designs that were trying to achieve that. And in fact, I was calculating this type of retrofit into an old, and by old I do mean old because it's been 100+ years construction, and it was like 20 flats there, and the design and the calculations showed that it is indeed possible, but it was not cost efficient.
So possibly going back to my original story about the technology having high prices and the quality, etc.
Yes, exactly.
That will come round if that starts to become a trend. And I think it will become a trend when we go into the net zero approach globally, because there's many countries need to deliver this sort of technology and this process to get them on them figures. It's a lot of work we've got to do.
I agree, and I really appreciate when countries use what's best in them, meaning wind in Denmark or geothermal on Iceland. These are types of ideology that I think every country should incorporate to use the type of energy that's natural for them.
So tell me, is there anything else up your sleeve as an architect that we could be doing in the future? Can you see there's anything on the horizon that's coming that we need to start looking at?
Well, there is a tremendous amount of technology incoming, and I think some of these solutions would be really used on a broader scale. I mean, you can design and build a whole building in PV systems, the roof, the walls, the shutters, the canopies, even windows and facades. These can all be solar powered. So although it's not cost efficient today, some of them will be. because the technology and the panels will be cheaper, and it's exactly the case like we mentioned before. The storage of the solar I mentioned before. This is a really important part, because once we have a blackout, and the German case, when the snow covers the panels, you still have some pretty few days to operate from the battery. So these are types of things we try to incorporate in the ergonomics of the design, and I think this technology will really benefit everyone, and it's a matter of time, like an LEDs or the solar, when it will reach a level of affordability, just like the electric vehicles.
I know you have a lot of passion for sustainability and what we've seen, because on our previous meeting, when I mentioned the word sustainability, your face lit up and you was tuned in. And today, when I mentioned about passive heating, you sort of had a really big smile in your face to sort of sense that, yes, I want to talk about that. And you've got a great passion for it. It's been really great discussing and hearing some of this stuff regarding, I don't really get to hear the stuff from the architect side. I normally go in afterwards, after everyone's done their work, and it's really interesting to see that is on in their minds regarding properties. So for today, what I'd like to do is is there something that you can give back to the industry as a takeaway for our listeners today?
Well, I think what I'd like all the listeners to be aware of is the sustainability part, meaning treating it like it should be. So sustainable design equals a holistic approach to the design, and all the process and involvement of far more things than just how to apply a heat pump into the building, or even how to make the roof green and fruitful. This is something that I think must come to an awareness of the general public, and to all the listeners who want some holistic approach. I recommend diving into that.
Yes, and then that follows on from the circular economy regarding the recycle of everything, and taking houses down. Funny, I've just bought a house in Thailand, and we've taken the house down, but we've sold the house for someone else to rebuild it. So there's a massive approach to circular economy across the world, and it's getting more and more. Now we've still got the issues with plastic. We've got a long way to go yet, but I'd like to see that to be addressed as well as part of this story, really.
Yeah, absolutely. We as architects aware of the sustainable design are just a small brick in the wall, but we have to undertake these small steps, and hopefully the industry will follow.
And I take it you like Pink Floyd?
Oh yeah, I love them.
That's brilliant. So Radek, thank you very much for joining me today on today's conversation about sustainability in architecture. It's been a great pleasure of mine to catch up with you and meet you again and talk about this. So thank you very much for your time. I'd like to wish you and your family well and be safe in these times.
It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for an opportunity, Paul. And I hope you and all the listeners stay safe and aware.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening today, and thank you to my special guest, And if you want to know more about managing your third largest expense, please go to our website on b2benergy.co.uk. That leaves me with one more thing to say. Be safe.